Good morning, everybody. If everyone wants to get seated, we're going to go ahead and get started. So this morning, we have the honor of having the Ladue School District President with us, Keisha Lee, who's also been a long time resident in Olivet. And I'm going to introduce her in a moment, but what she doesn't know is I usually go around and I have a question for everyone to share. And this morning it's a little more challenging because I will not ask you what high school you went to or the year you graduated. But if you this morning would just like take the mic and share, it's been a while since we've done this, just how long you've been living in Olivet. And if you had children that attended Ladue schools, or if you attended Ladue schools, thank you. We'll start over here with Mary Pat.
I'm Mary Pat Heenahan, and I lived two different times in Olivet. So when my husband and I first got married, we lived here, and then we moved closer to where my mom was, and then moved back here. So probably a total of 25 years, I'm thinking. Someone I'm currently supervising for her license in marriage and family therapy worked at Ladue School. So Crystal Saylor.
Good morning, Susan Waggy. Pardon me. We've lived in Olivet for 31 years. Two children. The oldest graduated from Ladue High. The youngest went through high school and then switched to Villa de Jeune. But and both went to Obanum and love the school district. And happy to see all the little kids on our block that have moved in. So looking forward to great adventures for them at the school district.
Morning, Missy Waldman, Ladue graduate, 1974. Went to the Ladue school system my entire time. Welcome. Good to see you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kimberly McKenzie. I serve as the Director of Communications for Ladue Schools. I've been with the district now for 3 years, and I just want to thank all of the Olivet residents for your patience during our construction projects with our parking lot, and Andreski, thank you for all of your support, and Mayor, of course. So thank you all for allowing me to be here today.
Hi, I'm Kate Pishon Hellman. I've lived in Olivet for 8 years, and we moved here specifically for the schools. And I have a 7th grader and a 9th grader in the schools right now.
Jim Person, I've been here 25 years and moved to Olivet at the engineering of our son, who went through Ladue High School.
I have not attended Ladue schools, and I do not live here. My name is Beth Andreski, though I'm the chief of police here and all of that.
No,
He does not live here.
I do not live here. I went to school here, but Major Dave Barry. Thank you.
Lean Zaweda lived here 32 years after looking for houses for 2 years. And we bought it because of the trees and the school system.
Hi, Leslie Ricard. I've lived in Olivet for about 38 years. We built our home here, and my 3 kids all went through Ladue School District. They were all very different kinds of students, and we love the fact that they each found a group of friends. They each found a place on their academic track, and they're all successful now. So thanks, Ladue School District.
Oh, my name's Roy Blair. I lived in Ladue. I lived in Olivet for over 20 years, but I moved to a place with the bedrooms are all in one level. I moved to Clayton, and so now I'm head of the Alumni Association for Olivet, which I think I'm the only member. But I just love my time in Olivet, and just love coming back here, and it's just so part of my heart. Thank you.
I'm Pat Wooten, and I've lived in Olivet for 7 years. My husband's been there for 16 years. We have grown children and none of them went to Ladue, but they're not living with us now. Like I said, they're grown and families and living other places.
Name is Jerry Newell. I've been in school district lived here in Olivet for 61 plus years. Or somebody in this room grew up from a baby who was in school with my kids. At the time, 60 years ago, we had the best school district in the city of St. Louis region, I guess. I've seen it go down. I'm seeing it come back, and getting a lot more kids, and I don't know what we're going to do for school, space for school.
I'm Vaughn Morrill. Next year, I'll have been here in Olivet 40 years. And actually, I was fortunate enough to attend the Ladue school system going through elementary school. And when we came out to Olivet, I've had 2 sons go through the Ladue school system, Obanham. And now we've had, between my wife and I, we've had 6 grandchildren go through the Ladue school system. Some are still there, and we feel very fortunate. In our opinion, it's one of the best. It's one of the best public systems in the area, in the state of Missouri.
Keith Hawes, we lived here about 40 years and actually moved here for our daughter to go to high school. And both her husband and my daughter had graduated from high school there. I went to Brentwood High School, of course.
I'm Carolyn Haas. I'm married to this guy. And yeah, we've enjoyed living in Olivet. Olivet's a wonderful place to live, great people, a wonderful community, and a great police force.
I'm Mayor Maxine, and I grew up in Olivet. I went to Central School, which is now Logos, and I went through to Ladue, to East Ladue. I know Missy's going to boo me because she went to West Ladue. Now there's one middle school, but it's in our building, not yours. And then I graduated from Ladue High School, and then when my husband and I chose a home, we came back to Olivet, and our children also have gone through the schools. And like Leslie said, they both found their niches, and they both had teachers that inspired them and are both successful in the real world. So kudos to Ladue. So I think this was really special to me to hear everyone's connections to the school district. And we're going to learn a lot more this morning from Keisha. So Keisha is a transformational leader with 20 years of experience dedicated to uplifting underserved communities. She is the executive director of Propel Kitchens, where she leads as the executive director, a local nonprofit that is focused on culinary training and includes a social enterprise focused on creating health and wealth with food. She is a lifelong advocate. Her values encompass social justice and equity. Keisha's advocacy is what led her to run for elected office, where she currently serves as the president of Ladue School Board of Education. In this role, she has successfully impacted decisions to benefit all students, especially regarding issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. She has been able to strategically navigate diverse groups and build relationships while simultaneously tackling courageous conversations, often related to issues of equity and race. Keisha has also served on the Olivet Parks and Recreation Committee for the past 7 years, where she has held the position of chair and vice chair. She was an advocate for Prop C, the $16.2 million bond referendum that is currently underway to provide some much needed improvements to our parks, as well as design and construction of a new community center scheduled to open in 2023. Her educational background includes a master's and bachelor's degree in public policy and administration from UMSL. She is also the proud graduate of the St. Louis Community College, where she was recently featured as one of the graduates highlighted as the college celebrates its 60th anniversary of expanding minds and changing lives. Keisha is an active member in her church, Shalom Church, City of Peace in Florissant, and a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. Keisha touts her greatest accomplishment in life as being the proud mother of two exceptional college-educated adult children. Raven, who is completing her 4th year at Tennessee State University, and I'm gonna say it right, Kimon is a graduate of Southern Illinois University in Carbondale and is now living in Atlanta. So good morning, Keisha. It's so nice to be here with you. So I first met Keisha at the election polls because our terms coordinate. And I was up at Logos because I was rotating on the day that I was running for city council and she was running for school board. And we just started talking and the rest was history. I'm the liaison to the Parks Commission, so I've gotten to know Keisha through that, and she was the chair during my tenure on city council. And now we are 2 women in leadership positions, and we are very excited to work together, and we do some coordinating together. So this morning, I just want to ask you some questions, and then we're going to open for conversation with the audience. But what inspired you to get involved with Ladue School Board?
I think what inspired me most to get involved with Ladue School Board and the schools in general was equity. I'm a strong advocate for educational equity. I've worked in public schools before. I worked in Hazelwood School District for 5 years on a federal grant program called Safe Schools Healthy Students. They really took a deep dive into education. We looked at the safety of our schools. We looked at a lot of the mental health components of our schools. And I like to think that we were ahead of our time because the things that we did back then, which was in 2008, are just now coming to light now as needs for students. We ran our own in-house, basically mental health program where we had a psychiatrist and hired our own counselors. And when I looked at Ladue schools, coming from Ferguson, Florissant, when I moved in, let me backtrack. I lived in Berkeley, Missouri, where I was for 15 years, where I was married to my ex-husband. When we decided that we could no longer cohabitate, I decided I had to make a decision for my children. We were living in Ferguson, Florissant School District. Would I put them in private school or would I move? I am a strong proponent of public education. So I took the leap and decided to move. I would look all around this region for where our next move would be. The top school district always kept coming up, Ladue, Ladue, Ladue. And I was like, I can't afford to live in Ladue. Where would we go? And so I expanded my network and asked one of my professors, because I was at the University of Missouri at that time, and he lived in Olivet. And he said, well, you know, Olivet is part of Ladue schools. I'm like, oh, light bulb moment. And so when I wanted the best for my children, like many of you have said, and so I took the leap of faith and moved into Ladue, moved into Olivet so that my kids could be a part of the Ladue School District. But when I got here, I didn't see representation at the board level. I had been the room mother, I had been the PTO president back in third floor, and I wanted to be involved at a higher level. And so I was also part of Leadership St. Louis through Focus St. Louis. And we went to our weekend in Jeff City where I talked to Jill Shoup and she was like, yeah, get involved at the local level. And I came back and there was an email in my inbox that said, this is the last day for filing, you know, for the school board. And I was like, I can do it. And so I did it and I failed 3 times before I was actually elected. So all of you who voted for me all those other times, I thank you. But it took that perseverance because I did not see representation in the conversations that mattered to me about students and student success were not being raised at that time. So I just wanted to make sure that I could be involved and be a part of that.
So during that interim, when you were, your goal was to be on the school board, you got involved with Olivet. And my question is, have you found a benefit of being involved in your local municipality and the school district? And do they complement each other? Or has there a skill set that you've taken from here to there or vice versa?
I think they very much complement each other. I have seen the benefit of being involved in the Parks and Recreation Commission. One of the things that led me there was people kept saying, we don't know who she is. Who is she? You know, and then I'm like, well, I need to know more about my community as well. So being involved at the Parks and Recreation Commission has given me a lens into the city of Olivet, into the community at a deeper dive. I mean, I live in Indian Meadows, but I didn't, I know the neighbors on my street, but I didn't really know my community. And being on the Parks and Recreation Commission has given me that opportunity to know my community at a different level. And then being involved at the school district has also given me an opportunity to bridge that community from one to the other. There haven't been many hurdles, but seeing as we have a lot of construction going on and parking lots and people not necessarily having access, I've been able to kind of bridge some of those conversations to make sure that we can continue to work and cohabitate together in a more natural, relationship where it's more, we do for you, you do for us.
So recently I attended the inaugural meeting for the Legislative Board Advisory Group. And this is something new that Ladue School District is starting. And at that time, I believe it was the superintendent, when he introduced you, he said that Keisha's about hashtag we love Ladue, or we are Ladue, not we love, well, we love it, but we are Ladue. And it was the night after our city council meeting when Dawn had gone through the first draft with us of understanding statistics on the census report and it was so fascinating that the next morning I'm sitting at this and you start talking about some of the statistics of Ladue School District. And I thought that it was so fascinating. And here I grew up in Olivet and here I'm the mayor of Olivet. And there's some interesting statistics that I wasn't aware of and that I'd learned a little bit the night before, but even more so the next day. And I was hoping you could share some of those statistics.
One of the reasons I created the hashtag We Are Ladue is because I think that there's a misconception of what Ladue School District is and who we are. To me, We Are Ladue applies to every person who is touched by our school district, and we are varied in who that is. Ladue School District is a very diverse place, but it is not necessarily known that by what Ladue School District when people hear it. A lot of times when they hear it, they think Ladue, they think, oh, these are rich white kids that just, they're driving their Porsches and Lamborghinis to school. And that is not at all who we are as a school district. We have 60 languages that are spoken in our schools. I'm reading off my notes. I don't misquote. Kimberly, I got you. We're made up of 10 different municipalities, but the majority of our kids do come from the city of Olivet. And that's something that I think that people don't necessarily know. We have 4,218 students, 25 administrators. The languages that are spoken in our building include English, Chinese, Spanish, Telugu, Amharic, and Russian. And so we are very diverse. My first experience coming into the middle school when my son was in the 8th grade, I felt like I was in the United Nations because there were so many different demographics of people. And you look this way and you have, people of African descent, people of Middle Eastern descent, people of Hispanic descent. I mean, it is the most amazing opportunity for students to learn because you're learning amongst such a diverse population and everybody brings something different to the table. And I think that is what makes our school district unique.
When I heard the statistics, there were two things that stuck out to me. One is that there were 10 municipalities that have, even if it's just like a corner or 2 blocks that they're within the school district. And I found that was fascinating. And I don't know how I didn't know that. But the other thing I thought was wonderful is that 40% of the students come from Olivet. And that's fabulous. And, I see where the turnover is and we see more young children on the blocks of people who've been living in their homes, original homeowners that as they're becoming empty nesters or people are moving out or downsizing, that there's young families coming into the neighborhoods. Could you share with us your Olivet's relationship with the school district? Olivet's relationship with the school district?
I think Olivet's relationship with the school district is I would say 40% of the kids come from Olivet. So Olivet is the largest supporter of the municipalities that we have of the school district. If you look at any of the demographics from the last initiatives, like our current $126 million bond initiative, Prop L, the majority of that support came from the city of Olivet, as does most elections that relate to the school district. So we are a huge supporter of all of the initiatives of the school district. And I think that that is also telling of how the reverse happens in terms of sports programs. We see a lot of the feeder programs from the Parks and Recreation Commission and basketball and soccer that feed into other programs. So you hear parents talk about, oh, I want to be on the Olivet team, or I want to be on the Old Bonham team that's, playing. So, I mean, all of that is relational. And I think that Olivet is one of the core tenets of our school district. We have all 10 municipalities, but when the majority of your children come from one community, it's important that that community is supported.
So with Old Bonham School being located in Olivet, can you share Olivet's role with Old Bonham School? What some of the things that we do for the school?
No, that's okay. I think right now, one of the biggest things is traffic support. I'm sure the chief would agree. But I mean, I think that we have, we are neighbors, and it's important that the school district be a good neighbor, as this is the city. I think that, we utilize the parks very heavily, from Old Bonham School. A lot of times the teachers will take their students right across the street, and have classes in the parks. I think that we, definitely use the parking lot for events. But I think that relationship has to just be acknowledged, because we are so close in proximity. And Old Bonham School in particular, being the only school remaining within the boundaries of the city of Olivet, is one that is highly sought after. And unfortunately, because our city is as vast as it is, every student in Olivet cannot necessarily attend Old Bonham. I live, like I said, in Indian Meadows, and my children went to Conway. That's something that occurred when some of the schools were closed and decisions were made before I became on the board. But we're still working to try and rectify some of those things as we move forward.
So I know that one of your goals, amongst many of your goals, is equity and diversity. What are some of the ways you have been achieving this during your presidency?
I think it started way before my presidency. That is the only objective that I have, and being a member of the Board of Education, is to ensure educational equity and access for all of our students across the board. I think that one of the things that I don't talk about enough, or maybe people don't even know, is I also serve as chair of the Governing Council for Special School District. And, I think one of the community members mentioned that their children all had different experiences coming through Ladue, as did I. I have, children, one of my children has an IEP, has had it since the 3rd grade, struggled with reading all the way through. We came to Ladue and the light bulb turned on. So some of the administrators at SSD, we laughed that the difference in education through special school district is like getting a hot dog and getting a bratwurst. So when you get to Ladue, it's the bratwurst. But everybody doesn't get that bratwurst experience. So it's my goal, having lived through it with my own children, and I often laugh that they're guinea pigs for many things. It's important that every student has that same level of access, not just in Ladue, but across the board, across the region. And so it's important for me too, as we talk about education and public education as it exists right now, that we look across not just the region. Now we have to look across the state and see how public education has been under attack, and how we can continue to advocate for all students, that they all have access to that quality education.
So when we talked about that previously, you and I have had conversations, and one of them was also that the school district, I believe, has expanded the diversity of the staff to represent the diversity of the students. And I think that's also incredibly important. I understand that another project that you've started with the school board is affinity groups. Can you explain what affinity groups are and how the families are engaging in them?
So one of the things that affinity groups do is it allows people who are marginalized to have some familiar faces and have conversations and share their experiences without having to go into depth and explain all of life's experiences that led them to that point. We have had created affinity groups. There's always been one for parents within the Ladue School District since I've been there. It used to be called CURE. And that was a result of some of the challenges that were met with some of the previous superintendents and African-American students not being seen or heard and being marginalized. We have since revamped the name of the group to The Village. And that group meets again with the superintendent, but it's more of a natural relationship. You know, that group exists for African-American parents. We've also created affinity groups for African-American staff, which is also called The Village. So The Village encompasses the African-American staff that work within all levels within the district. They have the ability to meet. We have since now have a Hispanic affinity group. We have an Asian American affinity group. And I think it's important for people, since we have so much diversity in our school district, that these groups have an opportunity to just share their experiences, share how they navigate this district. Ladue School District can be a very isolating place. I experienced it as a parent. It's not always welcoming, but I'm one that you're not gonna just sit me down and shut the door. So if I have to be the person that breaks through that door for everyone else, then I'm willing to sacrifice myself for that. Because I think it's just that important that everybody feels like they're welcome in the district where their children spend the majority of their time.
I don't know if this is part of the affinity groups, but you said there was a district-wide book read. Was that part of the affinity group?
That's part of some of the diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. So we have had, I think up to this point, 3 books, and there's one coming up, and you have the opportunity to participate on November the 15th from 6:30 to 8:30 at the high school. We have one, it's called One Book, One Community. So it is really a community book club. So anybody can read the book, anybody can show up to join in the conversation. But the topics of the books are based upon different groups. So the book coming up is called Disability Visibility Anthology for Young People, and it's by the author is Alice Wong. So we've had conversations about Asian Americans, we had conversations about Jewish Americans, and we've had conversations about African Americans. And so we just continue to lift the lens, broaden the lens for those in the community to have these conversations and discussions about different groups.
Beautiful. And hopefully, Kiana, you'll put the name of that book out on Facebook today. That would be great. We've also have all driven by or walked past all the developments from Old Bonham, or I know we're here at Reed and Conway, the middle school, and also Spady. Can you tell us what some of the highlights of the renovations and the additions are?
So almost every school within the boundaries of our district is under construction with the exception of the high school, but even some of that is happening outside on the parking lot. With Prop L, Old Bonham has gone, as you have seen, if you drive by, a major renovation. We have added a 3rd and 4th grade wing to the back of the school, rerouted some of the driving lanes. We will be adding pre-K classrooms to the building. The same will happen at Spady Elementary. Spady is basically going to be a brand new school, just because of the way that the topography of the land and the access that they had that we really didn't have in Olivet for Old Bonham. It was more efficient to just build another school. Everything with the exception of the gym will be torn down. And the new school is being raised kind of behind the original school. So if you drive down Spady, you will see that construction. They will also have pre-K classrooms added to their building. In terms of the middle school is going over a major renovation. And if you've been in our new high school, parts of it will mimic that. It is a creative learning space for our students. that will provide additional classrooms, additional spaces for collaboration, for classrooms to be combined, and just a lot of new additions and technology updates for our students. And then at Reed and Conway, what's happening there is we have there's a requirement for safe rooms. So basically, we're building new gymnasiums as additions to both schools, and those will serve as safe rooms. And from there, the old gymnasiums will be converted in time to early childhood classrooms and different other things that the principals see fit that they need in their buildings. So the district is under construction, to say the least. And it's very exciting to see. If you've been in our buildings, many of our buildings have not seen this level of renovation in a long time. But our students continue to excel. We continue to be top ranked at all levels. And so this has been one of the things that will help us, being in a new building with some of the new technologies and the new accoutrements that, students need to be successful. This will just only help us to continue to rise.
So at this time, I would like to open it up to the community for questions, but I do want to add in when you talked about our relationship and how we use the parks and everything, and how families want to be with the Parks and Rec and in our basketball and soccer, that this year the parks, with our community centers being closed, and we have a new one that's in the midst of being built. So for the basketball season, we will be utilizing the grade schools this year, the elementary schools, and that's really exciting. Because I think we've maybe have used Old Bonham in the past, but we have not. Spady. So it's really exciting that we're going to be utilizing all the schools as well as Hillcrest. So at this time, I would love to open up for questions from the audience if anyone has a question. And I thank you, Keisha. This has really been informative and really a special morning. Roy.
Thank you. Great job. Thanks for being here. I think it's great. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The Department of Education came out with statistics showing how fourth graders and eighth graders are doing in reading and math for the nation. And the state of Missouri comes in sixth from the bottom in almost both those categories and all that. And do you have any ideas as to why that is and how it could ever be changed? Or, I think it's I'm talking statewide, but it just seems so bad that Missouri is so low in education. And I didn't know if you had any thoughts as to the reasoning or how it could ever be improved. Thank you.
I think that one of the reasons that our state ranks so low in terms of education is that there are vast differences between urban and rural education across the state. We currently have states, some parts of the state that are going to school 4 days a week because they don't have enough teachers. We know that across the state, there's a teacher shortage, but we also know that Missouri ranks in the bottom tier, if not the last 10 across the state in teacher pay. So there's some things that have to be rectified. One of the benefits that we have in Ladue School District is that most of our funding comes from local sources. School districts that rely heavily on state funding have to operate differently. And we are blessed to be in a situation where that's not necessarily our case. Our students continue, the pandemic also caused a lot of learning loss across the United States general. But in Ladue, we did not necessarily see that learning loss. And we just had a data report at our last board meeting to talk about it. There were some dips, but we didn't dip as far down as some across the region and across the state did. So we've been able to recover, and our staff is working diligently now to make sure that those who did suffer loss are recovering. So, I think it's a different conversation that needs to be had at the state level with regards to education across the board. I just came back from Kansas City last weekend at the Missouri School Board Association's annual meeting. And those conversations are just now starting to be had. You can hear the different tone of the conversation with regards to education across the state. A lot of the organizations are very rural driven. However, the tone and the need is now seen like, I need what you need and you need what I need. So it's time that we, let's get out of rural and urban and let's talk education for kids in the state of Missouri.
So I think it's a very interesting presentation, and I'm glad to hear all the renovations that are going on in Ladue schools. I think when you talk, correct me if I'm wrong, I think when you talked about the middle school, you used the term safe room. What exactly is a safe room? I'd like to know.
Hope I do it justice. But safe rooms are a mandate that came out from the state. And to where you have to have a space within your school building that will allow for the entire student body to assemble, as well as have bathrooms. So in the event of an emergency, whether it be a tornado or I don't know what other type of event it could be, but you have to have a space within the building that you can bring the entire student body. So you're talking about 400 kids, student, staff, whoever may be in the building, and have access to restrooms. So trying to get ahead of that, we have progressed. So the schools that are under construction, they have it. But the schools who were not, so there were no renovations planned for Reed or Conway at this time. So the addition of the safe rooms was what is necessary.
Thank you for the presentation. I've lived through real transition in the Ladue schools. In the 80s, school district decided they would eliminate a large portion of the grade schools and the properties. And to me, that was short-sighted thinking in the fact that populations ebb and flow within the district. We're now in a building boom in Olivet with some close to 600 apartments, plus all the new housing construction, and the things are coming up again. And I appreciate the fact that the schools are being modernized for technology and safety and all the new things that are required. But in the long run, does the school district see the need that they're going to have to probably acquire adjacent properties, residential properties, or maybe commercial properties near where they are to expand the schools again, because you're going to run out of your existing property?
Many of those conversations have been hashed out as we were looking at the renovations and the construction projects. Currently, we've done several studies on the apartments. Those that went up in Creve Coeur, we thought we would get an overflow of kids coming into Spady, as well as what we're seeing here in Olivet. And we're not necessarily seeing families moving into these apartment complexes. It's a lot of single people, a lot of business people coming in for business to live in the region. So what we have done is that within the schools that we have renovated, there is expansion and opportunity to, increase classroom size. If we had to do any additional upgrades to, say, for instance, in Old Bonham, the plans are there, but we don't foresee having to expand beyond where we are in terms of buying properties or, buying adjacent properties or buying any residential properties to expand those things.
Pardon me. Is there any plans concerning open houses for the schools that have been renovated for the general public? I mean, obviously, families are able to see all the changes that have happened, but every time I go past Old Bonham, it's like I would like to peek inside, but I don't want to bother anyone because I figure they're extremely busy.
We definitely will have an open house once all of the construction is completed. I think that there have been some small tours at some of the buildings, just as things are going to be going away. So people can get a last glance. There was a walkthrough at Spady recently. Because once the building's gone, it's gone. And those that remember it as it was, it's just a memory. So I think that once we get to final phases of construction, we definitely will have open houses for community members to come through and see all the amazing work that has been done. The gym at Old Bonham is amazing. When I walked in there for the first time, having been part of the giving assembly in the old gym and cafeteria, it's almost hard to believe that kids were operating in that tiny space. And to have all of the gym space that they have available to them now with the rock climbing wall, I told our superintendent, I want to be here in the first day just to see their face when they run in here and see it, because it's amazing. And I think the community will have the same effect once you get a chance to walk through the buildings. So I'll make sure that I get that information, or Kimberly gets that information. Oh, go to the website is what I'm being told. So those, the updates will be on the website as they come about. But I'll make sure also that it gets posted to the Olivet website for our residents.
You. And again, it was a fantastic presentation, and I liked what you had to say about diversity and inclusion. And sort of my question is in a different direction, which is that with what's going on in the country about what's happening at school board meetings and also banning of books, I like that you have a reading club. And are you finding anything happening like that in Ladue School District?
I don't think that we've been unscathed by some of the challenges that school districts across the region have faced with book bans and requests for sunshine requests for the word equity, for instance. We've had all of those things, but I think our response has been a bit different. I would like to say that we haven't had to pull books off our shelf, but we have. Not many, but after review, we have found that some of the books that, have been challenged, like, oh, maybe this might not be appropriate. But I think we have a different lens and approach to what others have used, that has allowed us to be more broad and to listen to the voice of our community.
Might be kind of a hard subject, but there was the school shooting that occurred in the city. And I have a public health background, so like gun violence is an important issue to me, and prevention. I was wondering any thoughts that you have about that.
Yeah, I think the school shooting that occurred at Central Visual and Performing Arts High School in St. Louis Public Schools hit us all very close to home, a little closer than we would ever want to have happen. But it as we have safety protocols in place for our students in our schools. Those are constantly and even in light of the shooting being under review currently, to make sure that all of our students and staff remain safe. We do not, I stand in solidarity with St. Louis Public Schools. I know the principal personally of that high school. And I think that while that was a horrific event that took place, they had the safety protocols in place. And so it's incumbent upon us to just make sure that we do the same things. A lot of the renovations that are happening to our schools are related to safety. So say, for instance, especially in the middle school, you used to be able to walk into the middle school and you were in the school, literally. So if you wanted to take off and do harm, you were there. In our elementary, it's the same thing. So right now you kind of get stopped in this gap. You have to check in before you're allowed actually into the school. So some of those safety measures with the construction are not just for beautification and technology, but also for safety as well. Improve sight lines so that we can, have clear view as we come into those buildings. I hope I answered your question.
I just want to first say thank you, Keisha, for all of your work and for not giving up in the different election cycles, for keeping at it. I think you're wonderful to have on the board, and I'm really grateful for you. My question is, it's kind of a two-part question that has to do with possible redistricting lines. As our population and all of that continues to grow, and as the school size capabilities are different when construction finishes, if you anticipate that there might be any redistricting that would happen. And then just a second question about the early childhood classrooms in the elementary schools. I'm thrilled to hear that they're going to be in the elementary schools so the parents don't have to travel as far for early childhood classrooms. But I was curious if there were additional reasons for including the early childhood classrooms into the elementary schools as opposed to, or in addition to, I guess, the LECC.
Start with the last part, because that's the part I remember. Okay. I think that the addition of the classrooms into the LECC is exactly that, to bring it closer. You know, it's a hike to get over to the Ladue Early Childhood Center on Ladue Road, and to bring it closer into some of the classrooms where we know there's a need for early childhood in Old Bonham, in Spady. That just makes the access and the equitable enrollment for students, those early learners, that much closer to home. So if I'm a working parent that may or may not have adequate transportation to get across or deal with the traffic from MICDS to get over there, you know, it just makes it that much closer. Can you repeat the first question? Oh, redistricting. That's the one I was trying to avoid. No, 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 I'm just joking. Redistricting has come up several times in terms of conversation, but there is nothing on the horizon or something that we're looking at in terms of redistricting. As I said before, we already divide up the students of Olivet into 4. We don't go to, into the 4 elementaries. So if the lines may shift, and they have shifted slightly on some blocks, but we don't foresee any type of redistricting where there will be mass shifts of students going elsewhere. We're really just trying to get some stabilization and make sure that we can do what's best for all of our kids and keep them as close to home as we can when we can.
We have time for one more if there is, otherwise we're gonna wrap it up. I just wanted to thank Keisha so much. This has been a wonderful morning and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. And I always wrap up also with some announcements and of upcoming dates. And the most important one coming up is the Turkey Trot. And it's just a few weeks away, November 24th, and packet pickups on the 22nd and the 23rd. And as of last night, we were around 900 people. So those numbers probably will double between now and Thanksgiving. That's the trend from the past. So we're expecting 1,800 to 2,000 people. And I see some of the people in the crowd, like if you don't want to walk or run, come out on your front lawns like you have in the past and cheer us on and wave us on. That's just as important. And oh, I got a cheat sheet. We have basketball registration, which closes on November 14th. We have Starry Nights at Stacy Park on November 19th, and that's with the St. Louis Astronomical Society. And those are really fun nights. Like I just said, the Turkey Trot on the 24th, and then we're having Olivet Kids Night Out. It will be here at the City Center on December 9th. A blood drive on December 27th. Puzzle Palooza on January 13th, and an energy assistance, which is in partnership. We did this last month with Ameren. And we look forward to seeing you all. Our next Coffee with the Mayor is the second Tuesday in December. I believe it's the 14th, but I'll have to check my calendar. It is. I think it's the 14th of December, but I don't have my calendar on me, but we're looking forward to seeing you all again. And I just want to thank Keisha and all of you for joining us this morning. So, thank you.